All right, welcome. You are at Solar Oregon's How to Go Solar webinar on today, March 9th. I'm excited to be here with you guys to talk about solar. We are going to cover a few things. This is a webinar for home and business owners, so it is for people considering solar. If that is how you identify, then you're in the right place, or even if you're just solar curious. Our goals today are to talk about first off, what is solar? How does it work? Then we'll go through, is my home right for solar? What are the characteristics of your site that will make it easy or not easy to install solar? Then we'll talk about the incentives available, the cost of solar. We'll go through an example budget of a solar system, and we will finish with the installation process, and at the end we'll have Q&A. Q&A is one of my favorite parts of this workshop. We have this workshop on a recurring basis very frequently, and it's a relatively short workshop, maybe 20 to 30 minutes, minus the Q&A. So the Q&A at the end, I love to make as long as necessary. So I am here to answer your questions about solar. I would love for you to walk away today having all of your solar questions answered. So don't hold back on the questions. My name is Zach Snyder. I'm a program manager at the nonprofit Solar Oregon. And we are a 40-year-old nonprofit. We got started in the 1970s during the energy crisis, advocating for solar as really the ideal energy source. And of course, solar has changed a lot in those 4 decades. We put on workshops and educational programming like this How to Go Solar workshop. We also put on educational tours. We have an annual Zero Energy Homes tour where you can learn about not just solar, but energy efficiency and other related energy technologies like electric vehicles and batteries. Happy to answer questions today about those other related technologies. And we also put on campaign-based work. We help whole communities go solar together, navigate that process. And we really like to focus on telling solar stories. This is a picture of myself and my late co-worker, co-lead Ari, who has now moved on to work in the solar industry workforce herself. So excited for her. And we are just hired a new program manager. So really excited to welcome on a new team member soon. We're a member-based nonprofit, so really appreciate anybody on the call today who is a member. And if you're not, please consider becoming one or donating. You'll see the donation link right there on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and drop some links in the chat right now, and they're going to be links for the whole presentation, so you can refer back to them. It includes our website, a link to our events page, as well as donation links, and then links for resources for you to go solar later. So I'll refer back to these links, and I might drop them again at the end. That's in the chat if you're looking for that. Also, huge thanks to Energy Trust of Oregon. They're another nonprofit. They provide a key set of solar and energy efficiency incentives for home and business owners and all sorts of stakeholders across the state. In their territory, they don't serve quite the whole state, but all the customers of the main big utilities, including Portland General Electric, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural, Cascade Natural Gas, and Avista. They're supporting this workshop and are a great resource for you as you are exploring solar and energy efficiency and other technologies. I am going to give you a quick overview. Hopefully you've used the Zoom platform before. If not, welcome. There is the chat button, which in this diagram here, you'll see flashing. There's also the Q&A button, and that looks like a box, perhaps with a Q in it. If you don't see these buttons on your screen, mouse over the lower part of your screen, you should see them. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. I will answer as many questions as we have, again, at the end of the webinar from the Q&A box. You can put them in the chat, but I prefer the Q&A box, so I'll answer those ones first. Also, I love to use Zoom polls, so I'm gonna launch a few polls. And this is a great way for me to get to know who you are and know who we're serving and how to serve you better. So this first poll, which you should see appear on your screen right now, is where are you joining from? And we have a number of options, including Portland, the greater Willamette Valley, Oregon coast, Eastern Oregon, Southern Oregon, another state, or we do sometimes have people from all the way around the world. So never know. Go ahead and take a second to fill that out. All right. Thank you. I've got a poll here. This is optional and completely anonymous, but we like to collect simple demographics to help us know who we're serving and make sure that we're making our programming accessible. So please take a second, just fill that out. And then I'll have one final poll for you before we get started. And then we will launch right into the webinar. All right. Looks like we're pretty much there. All right, so last poll here. This is a couple of questions about a couple of specific incentives from Energy Trust of Oregon. That's what that ETO stands for, Energy Trust of Oregon. So the first one is, are you familiar with Energy Trust of Oregon's standard solar incentive? If you think, yeah, I know what that is, click yes. If you're like, maybe, but I don't really know, click not sure. If you're like, I've never heard of that, just click no. Same thing for the Energy Trust Solar Within Reach incentive. So that's different from their standard incentive. It's called Solar Within Reach. All right. Thank you. So let's dive into it. How does solar work? Here is a diagram I'm going to walk you through of a solar system. It's only got a couple of parts to it. It's relatively simple. So the panel that you see on the upper left here with all of these blue cells is the solar panel. It's usually not floating up there in space. It's on top of the roof, but it's here in the diagram, so you can see it. The sunlight strikes that, it creates electricity, and that's what we want with solar, obviously. It's a type of electricity, though, that your home doesn't use. It's DC electricity. Your home uses something called AC electricity. If you don't know what that means, that's totally fine. But you should know that there's another component to a solar system called an inverter or microinverter, and that's this box here that's shown with an arrow from the solar panel to the inverter. That's what performs that conversion from DC to AC electricity. And once it's in AC form, that goes into your home's electrical panel. That's your breaker box that you have probably in your garage or somewhere around there. From there, the electricity goes and powers all the circuits in your home, your lights, your appliances, everything. And sometimes you're producing more energy than you're using. And so if that's the case, that energy will flow out through your utility meter and onto the electrical grid. So your utility meter, if you don't have solar, is probably a unidirectional meter. That means that it only measures electricity going from the utility to you. If you get solar, you will have your utility meter swapped out with a bidirectional meter, and that will allow you to measure the amount of electricity going in both directions. So that when you're producing more than you need, you're measuring that, and that's going out to the grid. When it's nighttime, say, and there's no sunlight, and you've got the lights on, the TV on, or whatever, you're pulling electricity from the grid, and you're measuring electricity flowing to you from the utility grid. So that's all there is to a solar system. It's very simple, obviously, no moving parts, and that is one of the advantages of solar. And that gives it one of its great qualities of having very little maintenance. So what do these components look like? The white box on the left is an inverter, and this might go right next to your electrical panel, your breaker box. Typically in the garage, right here, it's pictured on the outside of a building, which is also possible. Alternatively, the inverter, instead of that, you could have micro inverters. So that's on the right picture here. You can see these black little boxes. You'll see there's multiple boxes. There's one for every 1 or 2 solar panels, in fact, and they perform the exact same function as an inverter, but they are just broken up into smaller components, and there's multiple of them. These are both great system configurations. If you're wondering which one is better, or if there's some kind of hidden folly with one of them, they're pretty comparable. Your solar contractor, when you're determining what your system will look like and they're designing a system for you, can walk you through what the differences are and why you might choose one over the other. Solar can be mounted on the rooftop, which is a great place for it. Your roof is otherwise just protecting you from the elements. You put solar on there. It's also producing clean electricity for you, which is great. You can also put solar on a ground mount if you have the space. A ground mount also, you'll need to trench a wire from your electrical panel to the ground mount so that it can be connected electrically to your home. However, that does add a little bit of cost, and so you might want to consider a roof mount unless you, for a specific reason, want a ground mount and you have the space for it. These are both great options. So I mentioned a couple slides ago that your solar system might produce more electricity at some times than you need, and sometimes you might need the grid and you might need to purchase electricity from the utility company. There's a great system called net metering that allows you to get credits for the excess electricity that you generate. So I'm going to walk you through how that works. And you can see on the left, we have a chart. On the right, we have a chart. The chart on the left shows a typical month. And this is a sunny summer month. So here in the Pacific Northwest, we typically have sunny summer months and cloudy or rainy winter months. In a summer month, you can see that the orange bar, which is the amount of electricity that you are producing with your solar system, might exceed the amount you're consuming, which is the blue bar. The green arrow shows the net difference there, which is the amount of net metering credit you've earned that month. And you might bank credits for all the summer months. Then during the winter months, you can see on the right, the typical situation you might expect is that you are producing less energy than you're consuming. However, you have those net metering credits banked up, and you can use those to offset that cost of electricity. This is a great system. Almost every state has a form of net metering. Not all types of net metering are similar, but if you're a Pacific Power or Portland General Electric customer, you have a good net metering policy that pays you just as much as you pay the utility company for electricity. Note that these credits roll over from month to month, but they don't roll over from year to year. So you want a solar system that's sized to meet your average needs over the course of a year, but not exceed them, because any extra credits at the end of the net metering year will be donated to a low-income family, which is great, but you don't see any return on your investment when you are installing solar, if the system is too big. The important thing to note about the net metering calendar is that it does not start with the annual calendar in January. It starts in March, and that is so that you can start to bank up your credits right as the summer is starting in March, and then use those credits in the winter. So it's a great system in that way as well. So that's an overview of how a solar system works, the technology, and also the net metering system. Now you understand the basics of solar. Let's take a look at what makes a site good for solar. What type of site is easy to install on? What type of site is slightly harder and therefore might have slightly higher installation costs? So first thing I want to talk about is system size. Solar is incredibly modular, and you can install a solar system that is a single panel if you really, really wanted to. And you can make your solar systems practically as large as you want them. The largest solar farms in the world are measured in gigawatts, which is on the scale of a large power plant. And so the typical number of panels that you might expect on a residential installation in Oregon might be between 6 and 40, with an average size of about 18 panels. That's about 6 kilowatts. Kilowatt is the way we measure the capacity of the solar system to produce electricity. You don't have to worry about what that means. Just know that the average is 6, and that corresponds to 18 panels. Typically, the main factor determining how you size your solar system, it's based on how much electricity you consume. And so because of what I was just mentioning with net metering, how the net metering credits roll over from month to month, but not from year to year, that means that you want to design a system so that it produces as much electricity as you use over the course of an average year, but no more. So a solar installer will not quote you something that is larger than your needs typically. Other factors that can affect the size of the system are the available roof space. Sometimes you are constrained. Maybe you need 18 panels, but you can only fit 12. Sometimes you are constrained by budget, or maybe you have a homeowners association that wants you to only install on the side of your roof that is not facing the street. That is unfortunately a common situation with homeowners associations. The great thing to know is that if you are constrained in the size of your system and it doesn't meet 100% of your energy needs, it's still just as great of an investment. And you're getting at least part of the way to offsetting your energy with solar power. The next thing I want to talk about is access to sunlight. So we are in the northern hemisphere. That means that the sun travels from east to west in the southern sky. So the best place on your roof to put a solar system is always going to be the southern facing roof in Oregon. East facing and west facing roofs also can work great. West facing roofs just slightly better than east facing roofs, just because sometimes we have misty and cloudy mornings. Other factors such as shading can affect your solar access. However, don't despair if you have trees around your house. I've seen many, many situations where the trees look like they might shade your roof, but they're on the north side, the northwest side, the northeast side, and you still get great exposure. Sometimes it looks like you have a wide open sky, but there's that one tree just to the south that happens to block a lot of your solar radiation. So a solar contractor will be able to assess that for you, but know that these are general rules that allow you to determine whether your roof is a good fit. In terms of roofing material, many roofing materials, pretty much any roofing material, you can install solar on. Asphalt shingle and standing seam metal are by far the most common roofs, and they are perfect for solar. It's very easy to install on them. Standing seam metal, just slightly easier and better than asphalt shingle, but asphalt shingle is also great. There are roof types that are more rare that it's still possible to install solar on, but it might require more labor cost. And an example of one of those would be not standing seam metal, but metal shingles. And that's because sometimes the way they're installed, you have to uninstall the entire roof. then install solar, then reinstall the entire roof, which can add a lot of cost. There are a couple of other rare roof types that might increase the cost slightly. However, most roof types are just fine for solar. Roof condition, though, is a consideration. And this is because when your roof needs to be replaced, your roof needs to be replaced. It can cause mold and other damage if your roof is not replaced in time. And when you replace your roof, you will need to uninstall your solar system and then reinstall it again. And that is work that needs to be performed, at least in part, by an electrician, and it can cost several $1,000s. And so the best time to install solar on a roof is when it's brand new. You can install solar on a roof that is however many years old, as long as you have at a minimum 10 years of roof life left. 20 years of roof life left is really the ideal. And of course, can't go wrong with a brand new roof. Your roof structure matters not because the solar panels are heavy and they weigh your roof down, so much as that they actually sit a few inches above your roof. And as the wind moves across your roof, it actually creates a slight shearing force that pulls the roof up. This is not a huge concern. The vast majority of the time, depending on your roof structure, if you have roof trusses, if you go in your attic and you see, take a look at the picture on the left here, and you see these cross beams on the side that are vertical and up top that are horizontal, or any other type of cross beam, especially if you see these metal brackets that you see in this image on the left, that means that you have prefabricated trusses. Your roof is going to pass any structural code requirements that your city might have. Portland is much more restrictive than pretty much any other jurisdiction in Oregon, just as a side note. Your roof, if you have rafters though, so take a look at the picture on the right, you don't see those cross beams. Rafters are also typically just fine. However, you want to make sure that your rafters don't span too far of a distance. If they do, you might need an engineer to take a look at the roof to make sure that it'll pass your code requirements. And if your roof is spanning far enough, you may need to reinforce your roof. And what they do typically is, it's called sistering. So they'll add a 2x4 several feet in length to your rafter on a number of your rafters and just screw it in on the side so it's parallel to your rafters. That's called sistering. Solar companies, they know how to do this. They do this very frequently. They also take care of any engineering needs if your roof looks questionable to begin with. It does add a little bit of cost, especially the engineering can add maybe around $700 to $1,000 of cost. So those are some quick rules that can help you assess whether your site is going to be workable in terms of solar installation, whether it'll incur any extra installation costs for you. Let's take a look now at solar incentives and the cost of solar. This is a chart of the cost of solar, the average cost nationally of solar installations from 2010 to 2019. You can see that the price has dropped by over half in that time. And this is really the time period over which the United States solar industry took off. And that's because of those price declines. It became affordable to people. And so the industry is a robust, very strong industry. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was kind of new. The great news is that those cost declines are continuing. They are slowing a little bit. You can see the trajectory is kind of flattening out, but solar does slowly become more affordable over time. There are great incentives. There is a great federal incentive called the Solar Investment Tax Credit. That's a tax credit, not a tax deduction. That means it's dollar for dollar, you get those savings. And that is 26% currently. That's not something that you receive when you install the solar, but you file for that and you receive that on your taxes. So you'll talk to your tax preparer and they will make sure that you claim the solar investment tax credit. And you receive that then on your return the following year. An important thing to note is that you do need tax liability to take advantage of that. So make sure that that is the case. The state of Oregon also offers a solar plus storage rebate. This is available anywhere in the state. It's up to $5,000 for a solar system. And the proportion of the system that can offset the cost of is different if you are income qualified. So you meet you're below certain income thresholds as defined by the state, versus if you're not. However, for a typical installation that is at least average size, you'll be able to claim that full $5,000 incentive. That is received when you install. So you don't, that's not like a mail-in rebate. That's something that you receive right when you first pay for the installation. And this is limited in its budget. However, the state did just give $5 million extra to the program during our short legislative session here. So that's great news. Those funds go quickly. So if you're thinking of it, make sure you talk to installer to see how available they are. The Energy Trust of Oregon, as I mentioned, they're the organization that is supporting this webinar. They also provide solar incentives, and that is up to $1,200 if you're in Portland General Electric territory, or $900 if your utility company is Pacific Power. So if you're not sure about that, take a look at your power bill and see who your power company is. That's their standard solar incentive. They also have another incentive, which is Energy Trust of Oregon's Solar Within Reach incentive. This is an incentive that it's for income qualified families. And so to give you, it's for low and moderate income is how they define it. And the threshold for a family of 4, the threshold's different depending on your household size, but for a family of 4, just to give you an idea, as long as your household is making less than $106,000 per year, you would qualify for this incentive. And this incentive is much larger than Energy Trust's standard incentive. So it's different in Pacific Power or in Portland General Electric. In Pacific Power territory, it's up to $4,200. It is based on the size of the system, but if you have the average 6 kilowatt system, you'll receive that full $4,200 incentive. If you're in Portland General Electric, it's up to $8,400. And again, that is at that 6 kilowatt system size, and that's the average size, roughly about 18 panels. So if you have a larger system, it'll still be $8,400 in Portland General Electric. If you have a smaller system, it might be slightly less than that, but it's still a great incentive. Great, so we've covered the incentives. I want to walk you through, and this is typically people's favorite slide in the presentation. I want to walk you through an example budget. We're going to do one for Pacific Power and one for Portland General Electric. This is the example budget for Portland General Electric. And on the left column, you can see we're going to walk through the cost of the system, starting with just the bare cost of it. Then we're going to add these incentives up and get to what it actually costs out of pocket. The middle column shows these figures for a non-income qualifying family. And on the right is for a family that qualifies for both the Solar Within Reach incentive and also the state's incentive is applicable for both income qualified and non-income qualified. Misspoke. So we're going to start with the assumption that you are getting an average system size. So the reason I want to dial these parameters in is because it's really hard to quote in a ballpark sense a solar system without knowing much about your site. So remember, a site can require a very small solar system or a very large one. We're aiming here at a 6 kilowatt system. We're also assuming that you don't need any engineering or structural reinforcements or upgrade to an electrical panel, things like that, and that your site is a typical site. But we're going to assume that a system that is 6 kilowatts costs $20,000 before any incentives. The first thing we're going to do is add the Energy Trust incentive, which is either their standard incentive or their income qualified incentive. And so that's either $1,200 or $8,400. you can see that the net cost out of pocket, the net cost after the Energy Trust incentive is either 18,800 or 11,600. That's not the out-of-pocket cost. You also receive the state rebate before you reach the out-of-pocket cost, and that's $5,000. So the out-of-pocket cost for a non-income qualified family is going to be 13,800. For an income qualified family, it's going to be just 6,600. The federal tax credit, which you can claim the following year, as I said, will be these values based on the system size, because it's 26% of the system cost of the out-of-pocket system cost. And so the final cost, net cost to you after you claim that tax credit, if you are eligible and you have liability, is about 10,000 if you're not income qualified, or if you are income qualified, just under 5,000. So thousands of dollars is always a lot of money. However, solar saves you money on your utility bills every single year. A 6 kilowatt system, it's hard to say exactly how much it would save you, but you might expect maybe around $700 on your utilities every single year. And so the system will pay itself off after several years, and then you will be saving that money and essentially building wealth for yourself and your family thereafter. So this is Portland General Electric. Hopefully this gives you a good sense. Let's take a look at at Pacific Power. I'm not going to walk through this slide, all the same steps, because it's the same format, but same $20,000 starting cost. You can see that after the Energy Trust incentive, the cost really barely goes down for a non-income qualified family. For an income qualified family, it gets cut roughly to 75% of what it was before the incentive. The out-of-pocket cost is roughly $14,000 for a non-income qualified family, or roughly $10,000 for an income qualified family. And that gets knocked down to roughly $10,000 or about $8,000. So again, the incentives here make a great impact and hopefully will get you to within your budget for a solar system. So now that we've talked about the economics of solar, let's talk about how you get started and choose a great contractor. So the Energy Trust of Oregon, beyond providing incentives, beyond supporting great educational content like this webinar, they also rank solar contractors to make sure that you know that you are selecting a rigorously qualified, a high quality contractor that does good work in your area. So they call these contractors their trade allies. These folks have, when I say rigorously qualified, Energy Trust really takes a look at their business practices, how their past installations have gone, and they have a forum where people can make complaints against contractors, which affects their rating. So when you take a look at a trade ally, you really know that they are a high quality contractor. And so I highly encourage you to look at a trade ally for your installation. Also, these trade allies are the only contractors in Oregon that can offer the Energy Trust incentives, which, especially if you are eligible for the Solar Within Reach, can make a huge difference. So you'll definitely want a trade ally of Energy Trust. I'm going to go ahead and drop the links in the chat one more time, just to make sure that everybody's got them in their chat. The fifth link down, the second item from the bottom, it says Energy Trust Solar Bid Tool. That's a link to this online tool that Energy Trust provides. And this is a great tool. It's an online form. It takes 3 to 5 minutes to fill out. You tell them your address, your contact information, and your information will be sent to 3 pseudo-randomly selected, but highest qualified, highest rated trade ally contractors that service your area, and they will be instructed to reach out to you and offer you a free quote. So if you're at the stage where you want to go solar, you think it makes sense, what I would suggest is use this tool. You'll be connected with 3 great contractors. You'll have 3 great quotes to compare. The contractors may take a look at your site, and in some cases, if it looks like it's definitely too shady and you don't get enough sunlight, or there's some other issue with your site in general, they will pre-qualify it and tell you if solar is not a good fit for you also. So if you're wondering about that, this is also a great tool. Again, the link is in the chat, Energy Trust Solar Bid Tool. And finally, the installation process. What can you expect? The paperwork and the preparation, the system design for a solar installation can take a little bit of time, and it can take a little bit of time to get you on the construction calendar, especially if the contractor is busy. And so when you sign your contract, you may expect to wait for sometimes a month, sometimes a couple of months. However, there is nothing happening at your site, nothing obstructing you while you're waiting. Once you're on the construction calendar and your construction day comes up on their queue, typically installation only takes 1 or 2 days. So it's very quick. And typically these days, it's just a single day installation is common for a residential site. So pretty painless, quick and easy. You have folks on the roof and connecting the electrical in your garage where your electrical panel is. The contractor manages all of the incentives except for the federal incentive that you file on your taxes the following year. Other than that, they acquire all of the other incentives for you. They do all of the permitting, they manage the inspections, and they manage the interconnection and the change out of your standard electrical meter to a bidirectional meter. So this is really a turnkey service that you can expect. And after the installation, there might be a week or so before you're actually interconnected with the utility. But once you are, the solar contractor will come and turn your system on, and you'll be producing clean electricity on your roof. And it feels good. So hopefully this has been useful for you. And we've walked you through the information that you need to take the next step in your solar journey. And I hope that if you have further questions, first off, we have our Q&A here, which I'm excited to dig into. I saw one question in the chat. This is the time to go ahead and put all of your questions, any questions you have about solar, or really any clean energy technology that you're curious about. I'm happy to answer questions right now. Again, the Q&A box, if you mouse over your panel, you'll see the Q&A button. Just type them in there. In the meantime, while you're doing that, I am going to launch one final poll. And this is a post-event survey. I started doing this in our webinars, and I got much higher response. So please, it's just quick 5 questions, fill this out, and I will start to answer questions if we have them. Looks like there was a question in the chat. I'm just putting up my contact information. You can see there too, which is also in the chat. So, Andrew, you ask, what is the max income to get the state credit? You're talking about the state solar and storage rebate. There is an aspect of that incentive that you get a certain benefit if you're income qualified. I can't tell you off the top of my head what the thresholds are, but you can look it up, the Oregon Solar Plus Storage rebate. What you get if you are income qualified for the state rebate is you get the same amount of incentive, $5,000, but that $5,000 is essentially per watt of system capacity. And so you max out your incentive once you hit a certain solar system size, and the threshold for that of that system size is essentially smaller to max out that $5,000 incentive, if that makes sense. So if you have a slightly smaller than average system, you might receive slightly less than $5,000 if you're not income qualified. But if you're income qualified, you might still receive the $5,000. And so I'm sorry, I don't have the specific information for you here, but a solar contractor can definitely walk you through how much of an incentive is available and what those income thresholds are. They are different from the income thresholds for the Energy Trust of Oregon Solar Within Reach incentive, and they're slightly lower. So you need to pass a lower bar on income then. Got a question here in the Q&A. Is there a warranty with the installation? What is the durability of solar panels? It's a great question. The standard warranty for the solar panels, so there's typically at least 2 warranties that you'll receive. One is on the solar panels, one is on the inverter, and sometimes there's also a warranty or a production guarantee, a warranty on the production, essentially, of the system. Not all solar installers offer a production guarantee, and to a certain extent, I would say that it's kind of superfluous because most systems are designed so that they meet or sometimes even exceed their expected production, but it's still a nice thing to have. The solar panel warranties, the standard length is 25 years. Solar panels themselves, there's no moving parts. They're very durable. If there is a problem with a solar panel, which is incredibly rare, but a factory default, maybe a micro crack that wasn't detected, it's typically manifests into a problem within the first year. And so it's definitely, at that point, still covered by the warranty. 25 years is a pretty long warranty. And just a note, solar panels, as far as we know, last longer than that. However, we don't have enough installations that are 25 years old to really say how long they typically last. But solar panels, they're durable. The inverter, the standard used to be a 10-year warranty. However, now standard warranties sometimes are 25 years. If someone offers you a 10-year warranty and gives you an option for a 25-year extended warranty, I would say that for an inverter, they're great technology, no moving parts. But if there's a part of the solar system that's going to fail, it's going to be the inverter. So get that extended 25-year warranty and you should be all good. Ralph asks, is the income qualification based on gross or net income? That is a fantastic question. And I believe that that would be the income that you list. I believe it's net income, but I can't say definitively, and I apologize for that. Rod and Beth, you ask also, is storage worthwhile? Storage is a whole other topic. Storage means a battery for your home or business, for anybody who doesn't know that term, storage. And the storage market is growing incredibly rapidly everywhere, but in Oregon, definitely too. Even just 3 years ago, there were really hardly many batteries being installed. Nowadays, there are a flood of batteries being installed. They're still relatively expensive, though costs are coming down quickly. In terms of whether it's worthwhile, there's a lot that goes into that. I will say, I'll give you a couple tips. I'll also say we're changing this webinar going forward. This is the last webinar where we're not including information about storage, because solar and storage together really is, it's really the future of the market if you look a few years down the road. And so we're starting to talk about them at the same time, all the time. But just a few tips about storage. You should set your expectations about how much storage can actually do. And what I mean by that is that if you're expecting, oh, I'm going to install one battery and my home is going to be set for, a 4-day outage, it's not going to happen. Typically, the way you think of it is either a partial home backup or a whole home backup. Partial home backup is where you actually take some of the breaker circuits out of your breaker panel, make a whole separate smaller panel, and only attach that set of circuits to the battery. So you might pick out, maybe I want the lights and the refrigerator in the kitchen to have power from the battery. And maybe I want a set of lights in the bedrooms to have backup power. Everywhere else, the circuits won't be powered by the battery. And that's a way to get more of the critical functions of your battery without wasting your battery capacity, essentially. So please join us. Our next webinar, I believe, is on the 14th. There's also one on the 21st, and we'll be going through a whole set of content on batteries. Green Rita, I love that. Green Rita asks, will contractors integrate battery storage as well as install EV chargers as required? Great question. Not every contractor offers every service. However, contractors are increasingly, as a standard, solar contractors are installing battery storage. It's kind of hard to be in the market without doing that these days. And also, solar installers are increasingly installing EV chargers. That was true several years ago. It's definitely more true today. And that's something that you can find out. Most Energy Trust trade allies, I would say, do that, but ask your contractor and they'll let you know if that's a service they provide. Also, have contractors begun to offer solar shingle options and storage now available? I think I'm going to take those as separate items. Storage, yes, definitely, of course, as I've talked about. Solar shingles. Solar shingles are obviously a very exciting topic. They've kind of went through a premature marketing stage a few years ago, and they gained a ton of hype. They were really billed as the future of solar, and it was premature, and the market was not there. Right now, Tesla, and there are multiple solar shingle manufacturers nowadays that are competing with Tesla. However, Tesla, I can tell you, as of last year, they were working on their third solar shingle install in Oregon, and it was very much experimental. I would love to do a little bit of research and maybe get back to you on this as to what things are like right now, because I haven't really thought about it in the past 6 months or so, or looked at the market. But I would say that solar shingles are definitely not the standard option. You should look at solar panels right now. What might happen in the future? Can't really say, though obviously there are a lot of solar shingle manufacturers that are hoping that that is the future of solar. Let's see, I think I see a couple, maybe a question here in the chat, and then that looks like it. Feel free to put anything else in the Q&A. Otherwise, I'll take this as my last question. Andrew, you ask measurements of a typical panel. Great question. I believe it's 30, might be 36, but I think it's 30 inches by 66.5. You can definitely look it up as a standard size. And a couple of things to note, if you are trying to just get a sense of how many panels will fit on your roof, code requires, national electrical codes, doesn't matter where in Oregon you are, requires that you have a few spatial features of your system. So the firemen, if there's a fire in your house, typically what they do is they climb up on the roof and they cut a hole in your roof with an axe. And so the panels can't go right up to the crest of the roof. They need to go just a little bit below the crest of the roof. Also, they can't go over plumbing vents. And on top of that, the panels need to be set so that there's a 3-foot walking margin, at least on one side of the roof, so that the firemen can put up a ladder, climb up, and then walk up next to the solar system. So you can't put them on your entire roof. A solar contractor, they do this all day long, and they can definitely give you a quick and free system, initial system design. So, and then Andrew, I see you're asking X18, and I'm not entirely sure. So if you want to, what that means. So if you want to just clarify for me if I'm not following. 18 panels average, yes. The average is 18 panels roughly, and that is roughly 6 kilowatts. It does depend on the wattage of the panel, because panels, there's a range of wattages you might expect these days, maybe from 350 to 450-ish. And then Rita, I see one last question in the chat. Any update on graphene panels, amorphous panels? Need new roofs, so solar shingles would address both issues. Great questions. The graphene and amorphous panels, I'm not up to date on. I know that graphene is still kind of a, it's not, you know, that where the market is right now, certainly. But good questions. You're testing my solar knowledge. That's it, guys. Thank you so much. I hope this has been useful. Please feel free to get in touch. That's my email on the screen. I'm here to answer your solar questions. And please feel free to join our solar and storage webinars in the future going forward. You can find that at www.solaroregon.org. Take care and have a great rest of your week.